Hey guys, welcome to the Narycast. I'm Josh, your host, and this handsome fellow next to me is the District Attorney of Tulsa, Steve Kunzweiler. Steve, how's it going?
Great.
Good.
Glad to be on the program.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Especially you're our second guest on the show, so we're still early in it, and so thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I just wanted to first start just how your Lent and Easter went, since I was the most recent.
It was great. Actually, really, with Easter, my oldest daughter, Sandra, is 34, married, lives up in the New York City area, and has our first grandchild, Alex. He's 17 months old, so they came down Thursday evening and
Nice.
then left on Easter Sunday, so we got to see the grandson. So we had a wonderful time. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we stayed in town, and I feel like we get both sides of Easter, the like super secular side, but then we try to keep the really holy side with our family. And we went to the Holy Thursday Mass for the first time this year, and I don't think I realized it was my first time until someone asked me to have my feet washed in front of everybody. I was like, I've done this on a retreat before, but we'll see how this goes. All right, so but it was cool. It was cool to experience that, and then we dealt with the craziness of Easter morning mass, which was a little wild at Christ the King. I think we were in the 9:15. We
When
barely
did you?
made it.
Which one did you go to?
We were in the 9:15, so we barely made it in the church. So
I got there early enough, and I started trying to route traffic just because it looked like it was going to go crazy pretty quick.
yeah, yeah, that's what I feel like we got there too early because we got there too early, like 8:50, 8:55, and so I don't think the 8 a.m. was even out yet. So it's like people were leaving. This herd of people were coming out, but this herd of people are also like cars were everywhere, and it's probably good that someone was out there trying to direct traffic because I'm not sure that was something they thought about. But I don't
Good
really know how.
part was the good part was it's refreshing when you see that many people trying to get to church. You know,
Yeah,
I'll take the chaos if it means people going to church. So
yeah, absolutely. That's why I was watching a podcast, and a guy said he started the whole thing. He was like, "Okay, listen, all you people that showed up to Easter Sunday Mass, this is like the Monday after, all you people that showed up to Easter Sunday Mass list, and it filled the pews and made parking hard, and it was just I had to get there early. Like, just listen, let's do it again this Sunday. Let's fill those parking spots. I want to park 3 blocks away and walk to church if that means you'll be there." I was like, that's pretty funny. Just set it up like he was like, dude, don't take our parking spots. But he was like, no, let's do it again. Let's make it hard every Sunday.
yeah, I
But I
got
don't think that's everyone's mindset all the time.
yeah, no, I agree. But you know, I mean, if you're God, I'm sure you're gratified that you get people coming to church, and you know everybody's on a different path. But at the end of the day, you know we're all hopefully pulling for each other.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think the best thing we can do as the people that are like there each Sunday, maybe sometimes during daily mass, and the people that are like really walking with Jesus as the center of our life, is be that example for those people. Like that's the last thing you want to do with those people. I feel like is be that Catholic that is just like why are you guys here? I used to be a personal trainer. It was the same thing in January with the gym. It was all of a sudden flooded with people, and so many people are so mad that people are there. I'm like, these people are trying to be healthy. It was trainers too, like people that worked at the gym were like, "Golly, this is crazy. This is why are these I'm ready for March when they all fall off."
You
But
know,
it's like we
my word lately that I'm trying to focus on is inconvenience.
yeah,
I think that is a very it's a word laden or a word that creates opportunity for sin. I mean, maybe
yeah,
not the greatest of sins, but I think whenever you're inconvenienced, your mind is lent towards frustration and all those things. So
yeah,
I'm trying to pay a little more attention to
yeah,
how can I talk with people about how to avoid feeling inconvenienced.
yeah, yeah, that's a good point. I feel like inconvenience can also be a really like it can lead you towards sin and like be be a bad thing, but it can also be a really good thing too. It can be a
Well,
room to
it's an interruption along your path, right? I
yeah,
mean, that yeah, I agree with you on that.
yeah,
Sometimes an inconvenience is an opportunity, but
yeah,
yeah, I may try and give a talk on that sometime if I
yeah.
ever get invited to do stuff.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, because I think when people sometimes they're like praying, like God, make me more patient. It's like he's not just going to make you more patient overnight. He's going to give you opportunities to grow in patience. So if I'm asked for patience with my kids, then I might actually see like an uptick in like them being crazy because he's giving me that opportunity to grow in patience. And I think too many people ask for the solution and not the like the ask for the immediate solution, the instant gratification instead of the process or like or understand that like there's gonna be a process to grow in that virtue.
Well, yeah, everybody wants to be the image in the mirror of, like you said, working out. You want to look
Yeah,
there, so you want to get to that point. It's like, some of the fun is
yeah,
the pain and suffering
yeah,
and working through it that teaches you the discipline and dedication you need to get through a
yeah.
particular task.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish that, especially in the workout world, I wish it wasn't so easy to sell somebody something by saying, you don't have to work out. You don't have to eat healthy. Just take this pill and you'll lose 15 pounds in 30 days, whatever. It's like some people will sign up immediately as soon as they hear that. And it could be like, you'll lose 15 pounds in 30 days, but you'll also take 30 years off your life. I feel like people are like, now I'll risk it.
That's my world, to be honest with you. I mean, the type of cases that I end up having oftentimes have these short-circuited solutions that turn into crime and or dysfunction, and so I'm very well acquainted with the, the frustrations of people and how they try to give a shortcut way to solving a bigger issue.
Yeah.
It's sometimes it turns really tragic. So
Yeah.
very accustomed to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And, and I think even like in our lives too, it's like some people may see something like that where it's like turns super tragic and like ends up in a courtroom with you. But a lot of times in our lives, it may not be that big, but it's like something as little as like a little inconvenience can turn us into like frustrated or angry or cause us to sin in a way. For me, it used to be like I would get these inconveniences where would be dealing with struggles, but it would lead me to like tell little white lies. Like if I was late to work, all of a sudden there was traffic, or if I like forgot about a meeting, all of a sudden it was like I had it on the wrong day. Instead of just like owning up to it and just being like okay with like, hey, your image isn't going to suffer because you missed that meeting because you completely forgot about it. Your image will suffer if you lie about it, and then they find out you lied about it. And that used to be a big struggle. I don't even know why. It was such a weird thing, but
No, that's exactly what I think. That's the human condition. Is we've all been trained to try and avoid looking weak.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. It really is. I think the more vulnerable we can be, the easier we can grow
I've got a whole discussion on weakness and strength. Maybe we'll talk about it.
yeah, yeah. A whole discussion on like weaknesses versus strengths, or how like weaknesses can
No,
be
no, no.
strength.
How weakness is a strength.
Yeah, yeah. I think so. I could see that for sure. I think one of my favorite, I mean, people I look up to, and it's kind of how like what motivated me with the show, and like or at least the way I wanted to do this show is Matt Fradd with Pints of Aquinas, and he like super vulnerable and showing his weaknesses and showing his wounds. And I think showing your weaknesses and wounds after you've healed from them is still hard. But I think when you're able to like open up those wounds and show people like, hey, this is what I'm struggling with right now, and I don't know what to do about it. That's yeah, there is like a strength in that. But
Well, the way I kind of look at it, so St. Paul says that he literally says my weakness is my strength, and I've started really diving into that. What does
yeah,
that really mean? And the way I look at it in modern times is oftentimes a lot of us are expected to present as though we know more than we really do,
hmm,
and it's we allow ourselves to be somewhat embarrassed when we don't know the answer. And I see that a lot with political leaders or legislators. Is they're asked
yeah,
to do a lot,
hmm,
but they don't know the answer, and so what they end up doing is pretending.
yeah,
And so I'm trying to encourage legislators to just basically say, hey, you know something, you're talking about a topic I really don't know enough about.
hmm,
You help educate me on that. By embracing that weakness of lack of knowledge or lack of
hmm,
ability, you're actually inviting more people who may be better suited to help you with the problem. You actually open up
yeah,
a larger population of ideas.
hmm,
And so I try to, emphasize, hey, don't be afraid of your weakness, because oftentimes you'll find strength in numbers.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like politicians and people like that would probably struggle with that,
I mean,
or at least who we see struggle with it the most, just because they're in the public figure, public eye. Uh, yeah, that's great to encourage that. They do. Do you find, like, in your position, that have you ever like struggled with being in the public eye and like with your, like, keeping your faith or keeping your beliefs? Like, was there a time where you struggled with it?
well, so I grew up cradle Catholic.
Okay.
And so, right was right and wrong was wrong. That was
Hmm.
the discipline I grew up under, and consequences were
Hmm.
frequent
Yeah.
and graded upon the infraction.
Hmm.
Uh, so, as with anything else, you kind of have to learn who you are,
Yeah.
it took me a while to figure that dynamic out. And thank God
Hmm.
I have my wife.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for all your viewers, but I, in fact, am married to the greatest woman on the planet. Christine is amazing,
Yeah.
and she's made me a really good person. But
Hmm.
I see how prayerful she is, and so
Hmm.
I oftentimes I'm like, all right, well, that's not necessarily my style, but
Hmm.
it does kind of put me in a position of like, all right, am I allowing myself to be too prideful and think I can work my way through this
Hmm.
problem?
Yeah.
We just had a reading here, I think earlier this week, where I think it's Nicodemus is talking with Jesus, and he's talking about, man, you just think about solutions in man's ways. You're not looking at it as how God views things.
Hmm.
And then he gives them that perfect example is like, well, you know what the wind is, but can you tell me where it came from and where it's headed? And
Hmm.
kind of exposing to Nicodemus, you don't know what you think you know.
Yeah.
And so I think where I'm at sometimes is I can convince myself I can work my way through this thing on my own. And so
Yeah.
the struggle I have sometimes is stepping back a time or two and saying, all right, God, you know, uh, maybe I'm not actually doing what you're asking me to do. So I try
Yeah.
to step back a time or two, but
Hmm.
it can be really hard on a daily basis to
Yeah.
be reflective.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think that reminds me of a quote from Saint Philip Neri, who I always remind people is the patron saint of this podcast, and where I work at the University of Tulsa. But he has a really famous quote, and it's "Be humble and obedient, and you will find peace." And that's, yeah, something that just kind of reminded me of that, is that this, yeah, second we think we know it all, and our pride gets in the way, and our image or the way society thinks we should be or whatever it is, gets in the way, all of a sudden that humbleness goes away. When with that, I feel like then it's harder to be obedient to the way God wants us to live our lives, and then all of a sudden we're not finding peace, and then society tends to look for it in other places, whether it's work or our status in life, or it's looking through it through social media or whatever it is. But it's
That's
like it's going back to that being humble.
Yeah, well, there's a great movie. I think it's Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino. I think it's called The Devil's Advocate, which
Okay.
Al Pacino portrays the devil, and Keanu Reeves is like a lawyer at a law firm. And
Hmm.
one of the quotes of Pacino in his role as the devil is "Vanity. It's my favorite sin."
Hmm.
It, to your point, sometimes that's what it is. You're
Hmm.
looking at your own ability to solve these particular problems,
Yeah.
and that's a perfect playground for the devil to occupy you to
Hmm.
say, well, yeah, why do you need to ask for help in this particular
Hmm.
situation? You got this, or
Yeah.
you're such a screw up, nobody's going to believe you anyway, right? I mean,
Yeah.
vanity can play both ends of the
Yeah.
spectrum. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
very hard. I think you're right with what did you say, Saint Philip Neri?
Same
Is
film
that,
there. Yeah. Be
yeah,
humble
yeah.
and obedient. Hmm.
Wife, whenever I'm whenever I'm in my grouchy mood, which is
Hmm.
frequent, she she's like, sounds like somebody needs to say the litany of the humility. And I was like, oh my gosh, I hate that prayer because it
Yeah.
just like free me from this, free me from
Yeah.
that. I was like, oh my gosh, stop it. But
Yeah.
it says all the
Hmm.
things that
Yeah.
technically we're supposed to be
Yeah. that always helps so much, but it is always like a backhanded slap when they're like, "You probably need this." I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" Like mine's the litany of trust. I get like I overthink and I get anxious and I start worrying about something in the future, and I'm just like I don't know what we're gonna do. Like if this bill comes in or this whatever happens, and my wife's just like, "Maybe you should read the litany of trust." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, don't say that." Or even the simple like, "Have you prayed about it?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I know that's the right answer. I know you're asking what you should be, but that's annoying. You're annoying."
Yeah, so today's gospel reading, yeah, I'm not sure how your podcast is going to work, but
Mhm.
today, what is today? Today's
So
April the
third,
11th.
yeah, April 11th.
Yeah, the gospel reading is all about trust, right? I mean,
Hmm.
it's you got to figure out how to find a way to place your trust in God
Yeah.
and things will work. But
Hmm.
once again, can't we all get this in our head that we can fix our own problems.
Yeah, yeah. And my wife always reminds me. I don't know if she got this from somebody or what, but she always said when you worry. I'm sure she did get it from somebody, even though she's a living saint. But when you worry, you've got to go through it twice if it happens. And if it doesn't happen, you still have to go through it once. And so you can like be super stressed to whether that you're going to get hit with a huge tax bill or you're going to get hit like well, I don't know whatever it is. You can be worried about it and you're stressed and you're literally going through it. But then if it doesn't happen, yeah, you're relieved that it didn't happen, but you still had to stress about it.
That's
And then
way
if it
too
does, yeah, and
that's
if
way
it
too that's way too complicated of a concept for me.
yeah, I think
I'm
she
more
probably
like Bobby McFerrin. I mean, he sings that song, "Don't
uh,
Worry, Be Happy." I mean,
yeah,
it's
there we
like,
go.
okay, maybe that's what I
Yeah, yeah, so I'm always having to like I overthink everything or I like to think in what ifs, like thinking hypotheticals and like what if this happens, what are we going to do? And she goes, well, we don't know if that's going to happen. And she said, and her mindset doesn't work in hypotheticals. She can't I could even say like if you could like be in any country right now with any celebrity whatever, what would you, and she can't even contemplate a hypothetical like that just because like well it depends. Like, is the celebrity on tour? Like, what? It's like, oh my gosh, like, just
But you married well then if she plays
yeah,
that game with you.
yeah,
I get into these little conversations with my wife and daughters a lot
hmm
too, and I tend to be more of the optimist in the family.
hmm
Christine's more the pragmatist
yeah,
about things.
hmm
Yeah, I do spend a lot of time, especially from my public safety role. I'm
hmm
always thinking about, all right, if some knucklehead comes through
yeah,
the doors at the church and wants to be disruptive, what am I going to do to respond to that? So
yeah,
I'm always on point on those kind of situations.
yeah,
But Mark Twain's got a great quote. It was like, I've had a lot of worries in my life,
hmm
but very few of them have been turned out to be true. Now I
yeah,
like to use that, and my
hmm
middle daughter will say, actually, I believe the exact opposite. She's like, everything I've ever worried about has turned into
yeah,
reality. So, yeah,
yeah,
you got to figure out each person's got their own perspective
hmm
on those things.
yeah. And what I've had to learn recently, or like within the last few years, is that at the end of the day, so, well, at least for me, I'm blessed in this aspect is that I've worried about some of this stuff, and I think in my mind and in my heart, I'm worried about it in a sense of like, this is going to suck. This is going to ruin my life. But but half the things I've worried about, like Lindsay's able to like calm me down by saying, okay, even if this does happen, that you still have your family, you still have your house, you still have like your bills are still paid. You're like, it's not actually going to be that bad or whatever. Like we just moved out of an apartment. Our dogs chewed up the carpet and like a little bit of an inch, and if we have to get it replaced, it's gonna be like $1,000 or whatever. And she's like, okay, well, like if we don't have $1,000 to give them, we'll work out a payment plan. Like, why are you stressed about it? I'm like, ah, you're right, you're right. It's like it's not gonna kill us. So
No, it's the value of having somebody with you. I mean,
yeah,
that's something that we underestimate how important it is to bounce ideas off of somebody else. I mean,
mm,
that's so important in life.
yeah,
But yeah, I think, you can be consumed with worrying about things. And I've grown to the point, back to your earlier, the question you asked me, I think I've grown to the point where I've learned to just say, all right, I don't necessarily like this dynamic that's in
hmm
front of me, but God, you've given it to me.
hmm
I'm going to trust that I'm going to gain value out of this dynamic at the end of all
hmm
this. It may be extremely hard cross to
hmm
carry or an additional burden on my cross, but I'm going
yeah,
to just thank you. And I tried to
hmm
very intentionally thank God, every time something happens to me that I absolutely do not want to happen, I
Hmm.
very purposefully stop and say, all right, thank you for the trial.
Yeah.
I'm not too crazy about it.
Hmm.
Thank you, because that at least makes me think that you are aware of what I'm going through, and
Yeah.
you're going to guide me in a way that's going to get me to the other side. So
Hmm.
that's that optimism
Hmm.
aspect of my life. I'm never a half empty kind of person. I'm always half
Yeah.
full kind of guy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's motivating for me because I'm not that way sometimes. But I remember speaking on that is that I was with the focus missionary one time, and she was like asking us in this small group of like, why does God let bad things happen? And she's like, Josh, what do you think? I was like, oh gosh. And then I sat there and thought for a second. I was like, and then she just moved on to one of my friends, like, well, what about you? What do you think? And we were both just like, I don't know. I've never really been asked that question. I've never really thought about like why does he let bad things happen? And by the end of it of our conversation, she kind of walked us through it. And it's like like bad things happen obviously with the fall and everything. We brought sin into this world, but like God, like the only reason God would let like a bad thing happen is to bring out a greater good on the backside, or not even like to let it happen so that He can bring out a greater good, but if it happens, then he can bring a greater good out of it. And so I was to be focused on that instead of the bad of it. It's like, okay, how can I learn and grow from this? And how can I, yeah, thank God for this opportunity to grow and still be grateful for that opportunity. Cause maybe it is that learning patience. Maybe it is learning like some financial responsibility or whatever it is. But it's like anything bad that happens, if you can keep your faith in the center, like God can bring a greater good out of it. And I was like, that helped a lot with us and our thought. But that I think that question gets asked a lot. Like, why would God let bad things happen?
I think so. One of the things I've been thinking about is, for the longest time, I tend to look at God as, as this authoritative figure. Obviously, he is, but almost in, hey, this is just as how you're going to have to do something, right?
Hmm.
And so when I was, I do that Lectio Divina, try and
Hmm.
isolate words or phrases. So in the
Yeah.
Our Father, it says, Our Father who art in heaven, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. And I
Yeah.
started thinking, I was like, all right, what is he actually saying there?
Hmm.
God's will. And for me, a long time, I thought will was all about like, well, I want you to be doing this, and you got to
Yeah.
fall into line here and here and here.
Hmm.
And now I'm starting to draw myself a little bit more towards his will really is that we be with him.
Yeah.
Right? That's his will. He
Hmm.
wants us to be with him through all of eternity. He
Hmm.
wants us to be in this relationship. And in heaven, he has that with anybody who's in heaven is all those people are of a unified will of friendship and fraternity
Hmm.
and so I'm trying to focus a little bit more on all right, how hard am I working towards being of a like mind
Hmm.
as a friend, right? What would I
Yeah.
be doing to make sure that I am reaching out to him
Yeah.
and saying, hey, if your will is that I be an eternity of friendship with you, then
Hmm.
let me figure out how to foster that relationship. So, and
Yeah.
I don't, and I try, and I'm trying to get away from this idea that he's in some kind of dictatorial position.
Yeah.
He wants me to make the right kind of decisions for everybody, including
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. Yeah, that was another question I got stumped on in spiritual direction is they asked, or my spiritual director asked, what does it mean to you to be in a relationship with God, or like to have a relationship with Jesus Christ? What does it mean to you? And again, it's just one of those questions I'd never thought about, and that's kind of the point of spiritual direction is for them to get you to think more and think deeper. And then I actually came across it in a video just scrolling through social media. It was Father Ignatius, I believe. It's actually one of Branson's old spiritual directors, but he spoke at Sikh, and he was talking about a relationship with Jesus is just means that he's in the center of your life. He's part of your everyday life. You don't do anything without thinking of him or without including him and discerning with him in each decision. And I started thinking about it. I was like, okay, well then I feel like my relationship is starting to become well. There are still times where I can get real stressed and want to do what most men do and like, oh, I can do it, I can fix it and just get real stressed and worried. But I feel like I'm starting to now understand that what it is to be in a relationship with God and to hopefully try to continue to live my life with him in the center so I can pass it on to my kids when they grow up.
Well, yeah. So, hey, you said we're going to play the Saint game,
Oh
or
yeah.
have your top five Saints. Do I get to go first, or do you go
No,
first?
the guest goes first.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, then
Yeah.
that's good. So then I'll probably reveal my number one
Oh,
pick
okay.
at some
Hmm.
point. But so Saint Paul,
Hmm.
once again going back to him, I did this retreat up in Wichita, the Acts retreat up in Wichita, and
Hmm.
St. Paul was our patron saint up there. And, I got to thinking about him being, obviously, well, the legend is knocked off his horse or whatever. But,
Hmm.
I thought a lot about what was it? What were the words that Jesus said to Saul when
Hmm.
that happened? Because I think it was something that really caused Paul to dive deep, right?
Hmm.
Jesus said, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?
Hmm.
And from Paul's perspective, Paul wasn't persecuting Jesus. Jesus is dead. That
Hmm.
dude's gone. He's persecuting these crazy Christian
Yeah.
followers.
Hmm.
And I think, ultimately Paul had to say, all right, hold on a second. If this literally happened, I got blinded by him.
Hmm.
And he said, why am I persecuting him? I'm not. I'm
Hmm.
persecuting these other people. Well, I think Paul ultimately came to what you're saying is, Paul says at one point, he's like, I live now, not I, but Christ lives in me.
Hmm.
He had to come to that realization is that Christ is in me as much as he's in you right now.
Yeah.
And if we truly embrace what venture that Paul went on and what Christ says,
Hmm.
I think maybe that pathway gets a little bit easier if we
Hmm.
we get over ourselves and start saying, okay, if I truly believe this thing, I have to believe Christ is in every single person that I
Yeah.
encounter.
Yeah.
Maybe I can gain something from that. That's
Yeah.
helped me with my spiritual journey.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it reminds me of the story too of I, I don't forget where it's at or anything, but it's like the king and the poor man is just asking for the scraps, like the dog, and like he's saying, like, even the dogs don't eat the scraps, whatever. But he asks for the scraps that fall off the table. But then later in life, like he sees himself in a distance from God, and God is holding that man, and he's like, "Wait, what on earth? I lived my life so well, and all this stuff." And he goes, "But you ignored me when when I came to you for help." And
Lazarus, that's
yeah,
second Lazarus or whatever. That's his story.
yeah, and so I've taken that into my life in a sense of it's not always the best thing to give money to a homeless person, and it's always great to do what you can. But even like times where I just can't, like I'm not financially there, I can't help that. One thing I try to never do when I'm being solicited by like the homeless is I never ignore them. I try to always, like, anytime they're trying to grab my attention, I give them my attention. Even if I can't do anything, I let them know that, but I ask them if there's any way I can pray for them, or if in the future, if there's anything I can do, I'll be there. But ever since I like, yeah, that story, I don't know where I heard it recently, but when I heard that, I was like, I need to stop, because I don't know how many times I just act like I don't hear somebody or anything like that. And you just never know where that person's at in their life, and a lot of the times they maybe haven't been called by their name in months, or maybe they haven't even been properly addressed aside from someone through charity, and so I've been trying to focus more on like, not pretending, but like realizing that is Jesus. Like in that person, that's Jesus. So if he's calling out to me for help, I need to respond and help in the way that I can, which might possibly just be through prayer. It might just be through conversation, or just helping them with their dignity of just showing them that, like, I see you as a person, and I'm not just going to ignore you.
Yeah, of course, this was great about being Catholic. We're always ruled by this concept of guilt, which I think is a
Yeah.
great burden. I
Oh
love it.
yeah. Hmm.
It makes me really rethink everything that I'm doing all
Yeah.
the time.
Hmm.
Um, so I always think of it, I project myself beyond that as like, okay, I do not want to be having that conversation with
Yeah.
God when I blink out, whenever that day happens.
Hmm.
I do not want to have that conversation, which
Hmm.
I say, well, when did I encounter you? I was like, well,
Hmm.
let's hit the DVD of
Yeah.
Steve's life, and
Yeah.
look at you ignored this guy. Like
Hmm.
you were dismissive of that person.
Yeah.
So intentionality is something I'm also really trying to be focused on. And
Yeah.
and I'm not going to solve that person's lifetime of pain and misery and
Hmm.
homelessness and mental health or whatever, but I can at least
Hmm.
extend a face. And all it takes, really, to be honest with you, is you need to know one person in your lifetime who's been homeless
Hmm.
to appreciate what you just said, which is, wow. I mean,
Hmm.
that could be, or it be me, that could be my kid, that could be my brother, or whatever that is.
Yeah.
And would I not be worried to death if
Yeah.
he or she was on the streets of a distant city and I didn't know where they were at? And I would hope they'd
Hmm.
encounter a Christian who
Yeah.
could be kind to them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's what I try to live that out, and it's not always easy. And sometimes you just ignore them out of like just your
You gotta be
natural thought.
safe. You gotta be safe, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And that's why and there's times where like you are driving down the road and you see someone pulled over to the side and their hazards are on, and yeah, it's not you would stay safe, and I would never want like my daughter in the future to pull over and see if they need help. But we what we've done is we've started to like as we're passing them, and I have the kids in the car. So oh, someone's stopping on the side of the road, and then we'll pray and we kind of teach Adeline like let's pray for the person that someone will come to help and if I'm ever alone, it may be something that I stop. But yeah, just
Difference between being a
yeah,
guy by yourself or the dad with a wife and
yeah,
kids that
yeah,
you gotta protect what God has given to you first. So
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, awesome. Well, so we're kind of getting closer to time, so I want to do the Saint draft here in a second. But I was talking to someone recently. I was like, these Pints of Aquinas episodes are like 3 hours long. I feel like we could do 3 hours, so I don't want to make sure it don't go too long.
well, you're
But
talking to a lawyer, so trust me,
yeah,
I can go all day long.
yeah, I know, right? That's what everyone always asks me. Like, what? Your family's lawyers, right? I'm like, my entire family, my dad, my aunt, my uncle, my uncle's newish wife, and my other aunt works at the courthouse, and they're like, "Why didn't you want to be a lawyer?" I was like, "Because my dad's a lawyer and my aunt's a lawyer." It's like that's they just stuck around like at holidays talking about like what they're working on or whatever the Supreme Court was doing at the time, and I was just like, I hate this, and so. But I'm glad what you guys do, and I always tell people that like you knew me when I was like little because I think when you came on as a DA, wasn't my dad in the office with you, right?
Yeah, yeah. 2002, I came to Tulsa
Yeah.
County. I've been the first assistant up in Washington County in
Hmm.
Bartlesville. I started as a prosecutor in '89.
Nice.
I'm into my 35th year. So yeah,
Yeah.
back in 2002, however old you were.
Yeah, I would have been 11. Yeah. So that was 22 years ago.
I've got one at my communications director is a gal named Katie Kelleher. Her parents are godparents to my youngest daughter, and Katie would
Oh,
have been
cool.
about 2 years old when I first met her. And now she's
Oh,
my
okay.
communications director. So man,
Oh,
it's
nice.
crazy
Yeah.
as you get older. The
Yeah.
You start seeing your friends' kids grow up.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's crazy. And I know we're going to be dealing with that soon, too. We got all of our friend group right now. All of our kids range from newborns to 4. And so I know right before we know it, it's going to be like they're graduating high school. Or they're going into high school. And it's going to be,
Hey, buddy, I got three daughters. It would to me, that's a gift. Not only thought that anybody my age or yesterday. I've got a little grandson, and I'm sitting there watching him run around, and I'm
mhm,
thinking, "Gosh dang, that was Sandra, Jenny, and Jackie.
yeah.
That did that much time go by that fast?"
Yeah. That's crazy. Well,
Life is fleeting. Take advantage of every breath you got.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's a great segue into our Saint draft. And
Yep.
I'm gonna clip this too. I'll post the actual full video, then I'll do the Saint draft too. I have my picks in my head. I was gonna say I left my writing at home, but we got so yeah, we'll do it just like a draft. So you're starting five, and we'll let people decide who has the better starting five.
Gonna smash you. I mean, I've got a
I,
list that can't be beaten.
nice. I always tell I told Lindsay when we did it, she was my first guest. My wife was definitely my first guest because I was like, if anything goes wrong, then we just canned the episode. I didn't waste anybody's time. What's funny, it went perfect. And then yesterday it was just like everything went wrong. But I told her I was like, some of mine I might not even have a reason for, but I'm gonna go. We'll go quick and we'll let people decide. So all right, so you go first, and then I'll go after.
Obviously, number one for me, St. Paul. Huge
Okay.
motivator, big time recruiter. You
Yeah.
can't top a guy like him.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then I'm gonna take a fearless leader with my first one to be my LeBron James of the group and be Saint John Paul II.
Oh, oh my gosh! You got to strike him off. He took one of my picks.
I
All
feel like
right.
it's hard not to at least take one pick from somebody.
Yeah, I know. All right. So number two on my list is Saint Francis Cabrini, and if you have
Okay,
not seen
I
Cabrini,
haven't yet.
oh my gosh! Anybody who listens to this needs to watch it. We talk about a woman who no obstacle too great.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you're going to see my team is going to be just smash mouth, whatever the sport it is. They're going to be in.
Yeah,
All right, St. Francis
yeah,
Cabrini, number two.
yeah. And these are like if they all were living right now, which team would save the world? So okay, my next one, I picked my faith warrior, doctor of the church. But when she died, everyone was like, I don't know what to write about her. She didn't do anything. It wasn't till later. But Saint Therese of Lisieux.
Oh my gosh, you took another one of mine. Oh
Yeah.
my god, you're hammering mine. I'm gonna have to dig deep here. Good pick. I totally love her. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's saint for everybody, right?
Yeah. Oh
Saint
yeah.
for
It
everybody.
should
All right,
be.
number three, and you can't top this one.
Yeah.
You cannot top this one
Uh-huh.
because I have it on Jesus' authority alone
Uh-huh.
that he was the best, and that's Saint John the Baptist.
Oh dang.
How can you beat Saint John the
Yeah.
Baptist if Jesus the Lord is saying he was great, right?
He's Jesus' front runner. Like he's like run ahead and yeah.
I mean, you got good people
Yeah.
because you're already picking from my list, but
Yeah. Okay.
I think I'm already somewhat kicking.
This one's tough. All right, so pick three for me. So got to get into other countries and evangelize and get the best guy. So Saint Francis Xavier.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I debated on him.
Yeah.
I did.
Didn't quite make your top five.
No, I mean, yeah, he could have been there.
Could've been
I go really with the powerhouse Saint Augustine in that area.
Oh,
Pick
okay.
number four,
Saint Augustine. Okay. Well, I was almost picked this person with my number two pick. Was going to go with the knowledge guy, the guy that would be the writer. So I'll go with him now as Saint Thomas Aquinas.
Oh, yeah. No, I think that's a good one too. All right,
Yeah.
now this is number five. This one can't beat it, and I know you won't even contemplate this one, but yeah, nobody can argue with this. Saint.
Wait, hold on. It cut out for me. Who was it?
Saint.
Saint.
Yes,
Yeah.
because if you read your catechism, it says that this is all a matter of linguistics, and just through evolution of Western culture, we've gotten away from it. But anybody who is a prophet or a figure, a leading figure in the Old Testament, is considered a saint in heaven. So how can you deny a guy who parted the Red Sea and started pretty much the whole game?
That is tough. Yeah. And truly just trusted God with his mission because he was like, you want me to go talk to Pharaoh? Okay. All right. Well, my fifth pick, it's technically a couple, but I guess if I had to pick one of them, it would be the maker of religious life is Saint Zélie Martin. She'd be my dark horse, the one that would be the pumping out the religious sisters and priests. Be my stuff. I don't know. That's a tough one.
If this were a Final Four, your team's not. You're not going
to. We're getting upset by a Cinderella team.
No, the Kunzweiler juggernaut is going to. I'm going to be like the UCLA under John Wooden, where we're going to have like 10 championships in a row. I challenge any of your future speakers to come up with a better lineup than that top five.
I'll have to write them down, and that way I can. We'll keep a tally. We'll let people vote on like social media, and if like I get beat by Lindsay, then I'll put Lindsay's team against yours, and if you beat her, then I'll put you against the next person.
This isn't like the novelty of things. This is like you said, your top five, the people who are going to make the biggest difference in the world, and so I picked them.
Yeah,
I knew I was going to smash it.
Well, week 4. So next week we got Branson. We'll see who Branson picks, and then week 4 we got Bishop Condola. We'll see who Bishop's team is. So.
And you can tell Bishop Condola that. So.
Yeah. Hey, Bishop, Steve said he's going to smash your team. That'd be awesome. Well, Steve, thanks for joining and being on early on, too, as this is a startup. We look forward to maybe having you back on some other time and and seeing the growth of the podcast. And you're one of the founders, the first guests.
This will be by which all other podcasts are going to be measured.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
convinced.
yeah, oh yeah. We're gonna take it to new heights. So
Yeah,
watch out, Pints of Aquinas.
I said I set the bar. Let's see if anybody can get above it. All right. Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. See you, Steve.